Hi, my name is Jen Legath, and I'm currently wrapping up my Master's of Education in Assessment, Curriculum, and Online Teaching. I currently teach in Berks County at Wilson High School. I co-teach geometry, and I am the special education teacher in the regular ed class. Okay, so I was hoping to learn more about how effective my daily warm-ups formative assessments were. I give a daily warm-up each day, and I had noticed that not a lot of students participated, or I would have the same students answering the same questions each day. Other times I would notice that students would wait until I went over the questions and then just jot stuff down. My focus has always been on algebra content. I had noticed over the years that students' algebra skills were severely lacking. They're supposed to be taking Algebra 1 before they enter our class in geometry. This year I started having students complete like a Google form so that I could keep track if they completed the warm-up or not. I started giving credit this year where I previously had not given credit. My focus for this project was to see if students performed better on a summative assessment when given a warm-up that reviewed like the previous day's concepts. I wanted to review the previous day's concepts instead of just giving random skills to practice. I decided I would not give two sections, 2 periods, a warm-up. I wanted to compare the results on the quiz to see if students did better when given the warm-ups. The problem has always been that students either did not complete the warm-ups or didn't seem to gain much from random reviews. I wanted to focus on this area because I wanted my warm-ups to be more meaningful to students and help them to be more successful. I did not want students just to view the formative assessments as busy work, but an opportunity to grow. I wanted to see if they actually completed it, if they did better on the quiz. This would help me recognize how students are progressing through the unit and also help students continually review concepts and build upon the previous day's lesson. All right, so my main research question was that I was trying to answer if students performed better on a summative assessment when given a daily online formative assessment compared to students who were not given a daily formative assessment. Some of the background, some major key points I pulled from my literature review was a study that focused on utilizing online formative assessments that gave students feedback if their answer is correct or incorrect. This allowed the teacher to not have to go through each student's response and provide feedback, which cut down on time that you were able to return it. Throughout my study, I incorporated online programs like Khan Academy and Edpuzzle. I did a Nearpod activity, and that provides feedback on incorrect answers or correct answers. Another key statement from my literature review that I highlighted was that in the study, students who completed the formative assessment scored 15% higher on their post-test when compared to a group of students that did not receive formative assessments. During my study, I was trying to make meaningful formative assessments. In one of the articles I used for my literature review, the article focused on making meaningful formative assessment, and this statement really resonated with me. It said that it is essential for teachers to help learners both understand and experience reality that sustained effort and mindful attention to progress feeds success. I took this to mean that students need to put forth effort to achieve success. I didn't want to give students formative assessments that they would automatically be successful on, or vice versa, where they would be really struggling. I needed students to recognize that in order to be successful, they had to take notes, complete the activities, and ask questions, and that their work ethic would feed success. The final key point that I pulled from my literature review was a study that was completed on a group of fifth graders, and two groups were given a daily formative assessment where the other groups were not. It's exactly what I did for my research. The study involved a pre-test and a post-test, and the pre-test scores were pretty even across the board, and then the two groups received the daily formative assessment. And at the end, the students who were given the formative assessment scored significantly higher than the group that was not given a formative assessment. I felt like these key statements really summarize what I was looking for. So my design. My design of my project included, like I said before, giving two sections of students a daily formative assessment at the beginning of each class. Each formative assessment reviewed the topics covered from the day before. for the most part. My hope was that when students took the quiz, they were better prepared because of the constant reviewing of the topics being covered, meaning we didn't just cover a topic and move right on. I kind of tied it in each day. Like I mentioned before, I used several online platforms since we are hybrid, so I had to have online formative assessments. Programs like Khan Academy, Edpuzzle, and Nearpod provide feedback for the students. Khan Academy provides hints, and Edpuzzle is like instructional videos across, and then you can embed questions in and provide feedback. The content covered was a unit on algebra concepts. The concepts covered were ordering real numbers, exponents, greatest common factor, least common multiple, and simplifying square roots. The other two groups in the study did not receive the daily warm-ups that reviewed the concepts. I collected data on whether the students participated or not and what their scores on their assessment was. So now to talk about some of my findings. One of the main findings I found was the lack of participation. So I gave the formative assessments to periods 1 and 2, and even though students in periods 1 and 2 were required to complete the warm-ups, I found that I still had a ton of students not participating. In this chart, you can see that out of the students in period 1, the participation rate was about 50%. I noticed a major trend in students not participating when they were working from home. I also had quite a few students quarantining during this time, and they just did not log on to class. This shows the participation in period 2, and for the most part, their participation was much higher than period 1. Second period overall has been a delight. They are chatty, and they are always in class. I very rarely have students absent. And so while participation wasn't 100%, for the most part, it was about 75% or higher. So this slide shows that the quiz scores for period 1, and as I mentioned, they received the formative assessments. Overall, they had the highest average and they received the formative assessment. Even though I had several students not participating, they scored the highest, which is a little shocking to me. The average was a 10.46 out of 15, which equals about a 70%. Not great, but again, the highest of all the sections. I had 3 students who did not even take the quiz. Some of these students took the quiz from home, and so sometimes their participation wasn't great. So period 2, they received the formative assessment as well and had an average quiz score of a 9.94 out of 15. Out of the 2 sections that received the daily formative assessments, they had the highest participation rate. Only 1 student did not complete the quiz, so that wasn't bad. Period 3, they did not receive a formative assessment every day. Their average was an 8.68 out of 15, which is an overall percentage of about 59%, which is pretty bad. This class had 5 students who did not complete the quiz. This is our largest class, but also our quietest class. This final section was my 4th period class who did not receive the daily formative assessment. Their average was actually the lowest at 7.76 out of 15, which is about a 52%. I only had 2 students in this section that did not complete the quiz. So overall, here is the averages. Again, the averages were not great. The first 2 periods which received the daily formative assessment had the highest quiz scores, and the groups that did not receive the daily formative assessment had failing averages. Overall, it proved my point that a daily formative assessment does improve summative scores, even if they are not the greatest. Things I learned from this project are that my formative assessment is not as effective as I had hoped. The averages of the quiz scores were pretty bad and indicate that students definitely need more support and assistance when completing work. I noticed a major trend in students not completing the warm-ups when they were working from home, which leads me to believe that there are some accountability issues that as a district we need to look at and figure out ways for students to be held more accountable to get their work done. It is evident, even though this unit was essentially content that students have already learned, that they still really struggle and need more time. This project really required me to reflect on my teaching. I recognize that while I did improve on providing students with more meaningful warm-ups, that I need to work on giving giving students more work or practice if needed, and I can't just move on for the sake of getting in so much material. I need to figure out ways to motivate my students to want to do well, ask them about why they are not getting their work done, ways I can help them be more successful, and at the end of the day, data or no data, I just want my students to do well. Sometimes that means I need to take more time so students can learn it right. This project can inform my school to shed light on how much students struggle with algebra content. Without going too far down the rabbit hole, our algebra curriculum is severely lacking. Year after year, we notice how much students are lacking basic algebra skills. I think the district needs to recognize how the math courses need to be looked at so that students can be more successful or placed appropriately. Finally, as this is a unique year, I think we need to improve in some areas of our virtual learning. Simple things like ensuring cameras are on so they can stay focused and asking questions. Having kids come into school and maybe not doing full remote. When kids are in front of us, they're more likely to get their work done than when they're at home. Overall, this project has shed a lot of things I can do to become a better teacher. So thanks for listening.